Hello, crafty friends. This is Anya General with Ink, Paper, Scissors. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video starts off a little differently than usual. If you've been following me for a while, or if you've joined me during one of my recent live streams, you may have heard me mention that I've been reorganizing my craft room. While the majority of the reorganization is done, I still have a few loose ends to tie up, like going through a couple of drawers filled with crafty tools that still need sorting. One of those drawers is home to all my pastes, and after filming my last mixed media video, I realized it was time to give that drawer some attention. As I was sorting through everything, I decided to swatch all of my pastes. I know from experience that I'm far more likely to use what I have when I can see it at a glance. Swatching helps me make quick decisions when I'm planning a project, because I can instantly see which paste will work best, whether I'm looking for shimmer, texture, transparency, or a bold pop of color. What you're seeing on screen right now is the finished product, my completed swatch collection. And no, I don't own 100 jars of paste, but swatching each one still felt like a big undertaking. To get the most out of the process, I decided to swatch each paste on 3 different cardstocks so I could see how it behaves depending on the background. Some pastes look very different on white, black, or colored cardstock. Some are translucent, others are more opaque, and some shift in tone depending on the surface. Each swatch has the name of the paste labeled on the back, which makes it easy to identify. I typed out all the paste names, printed them onto label paper, and then trimmed them down using my Tim Holtz trimmer. I printed 3 labels for each paste, 1 for each cardstock sample. The structure of today's video will look a little different. First, I'll walk you through my swatching process using 2 of my pastes so you can see exactly how I do it. After that, I'll demonstrate 3 different techniques for using paste in your card making. These are super fun, and I'm excited to share them with you. Finally, I'll show you how I turned those paste panels into finished cards. Cards that I really hope will inspire you to try some of these techniques for yourself. One quick heads up. Since we're working with paste, dry time is essential. Make sure your panels are fully dry before you move on to card assembly. Trust me, it's worth the wait. If you tend to be a little impatient, then you could also use your heat tool to speed up the drying process. Before we dive in, take a second to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to click the notification bell, so you're always alerted when I post something new. I share videos every Thursday filled with card making ideas, techniques, and plenty of inspiration to keep your creativity flowing. You'll find all the supplies I used today linked below in the video description, as well as in my visual supply list and on my blog, where I also share extra photos, helpful tips, and additional resources. And if you decide to purchase anything I used today, I'd be so grateful if you used my affiliate links. They don't cost you anything extra, but they do help support my channel and allow me to continue bringing you free, high-quality content just like this. All right, with all that said, let's jump right in and start swatching. I started out by selecting a thicker cardstock, 100-pound weight, in 3 colors. White, light purple, you could really choose any light color you have, and black. I took my 8.5 by 11-inch sheets and cut them into 3-inch wide strips. Then I cut those strips every 2 inches to create business card-sized swatches that measure 3 by 2 inches. Once I had a nice stack of swatches cut, I used the leftover cardstock to trim some 1/2-inch wide strips. You'll see in a moment why those little strips are so useful. They help set up your swatching system perfectly. Next, I filled a small plastic cleaning bowl with hot water and placed it on the desk next to me. This is a great way to keep your used stencils wet while you work, so the paste doesn't dry and set on them, because once it dries, it's much harder to clean off. Then I selected about 5 or 6 stencils that I could rotate through. This way, I could get more swatching done at once without having to stop and wash my stencil after every single swatch. For the actual swatching setup, I used my original sized MISTI. I placed a grip mat inside to help hold the swatches in place. I start by lining up one of those 1/2-inch strips along the left side of the MISTI and another along the bottom edge that helps guide where each swatch will go. Then I put 2 swatches into place, one white and one black. I also add a scrap piece of cardstock on the right side of the swatches to help keep the paste contained to paper only. Once that's all lined up, I lay my first stencil over the top and begin swatching. For my first paste, I used Crafter's Companion Spectrum Noir glitter paste in Silver Moon. I spread it over the stencil using a palette knife, then lift off the stencil and remove both the white and black swatches. Next, I placed the light purple swatch in the same position and spread the same paste over it. Once I've finished that third swatch, I lift the stencil and drop it directly into my bowl of water to soak. Then I place all 3 swatches onto a tray I had set aside so they can dry. I also set the name of the paste next to the swatches to keep everything organized, especially helpful later when it's time to label. Now, before moving on, I remove the right-hand strip of cardstock, the one that had a little paste on it, and trim off the messy section. Then I return the clean strip to the MISTI. If I notice any paste on the grip mat, I gently wipe it down with a baby wipe. It's really important not to let paste dry on your mat, or it can be tricky to remove later. I repeat this whole process again, this time with the Crafter's Companion Spectrum Noir glitter paste in rose gold. Just like before, I add the side strips, place my black and white swatches, position a scrap piece of cardstock, and lay the stencil on top. I spread the rose gold paste over the stencil, then lift off the black and white swatches, swap in my purple cardstock, and spread the paste again. Then all 3 swatches go onto the drying tray. Once I finish swatching for the day, I let all the panels dry completely, usually for about half a day, before moving on to the next step. Once they were dry, I adhered the printed name label to the back of each swatch, then punched a hole in the top right corner and added them to a swatch ring. And here's a little reminder. Make sure your paste is fully dry before stacking or storing the swatches. If it's even slightly tacky, it could stick to the other swatches and ruin your hard work. Now it's time to dive into the techniques. Since we're working with paste, which needs time to dry, I'll be showing you all 3 techniques first so we can get the backgrounds started before moving on to creating our cards. For the first technique, I'm using the Classic Mouse border die set, and I've chosen to work with the anchor border and the helm border. I die cut each design multiple times using 100-pound white cardstock to create sturdy pieces. Once I have enough die cuts, I lay them side by side on my Altenew sticky mat, aligning the edges carefully. Then I take some purple tape from ThermoWeb and use it to adhere the border pieces together. This ensures that the tape doesn't interfere with the pattern. What I'm doing here is essentially creating my own stencil from these die cuts. Once the stencil is complete and taped together, I prepare my background panel. I add double-sided adhesive to the back of my A2-sized panel and press it onto my glass mat to keep it from shifting. Then I place my DIY paper stencil over the panel and secure it to the glass mat with mint tape, making sure everything is firmly in place. Now it's time to add texture. I'm using Simon Hurley's Astro paste in the color Frostbite, which is a beautiful icy shade. I spread the paste over the stencil using a paste scraper, making sure to scrape off any excess and return it to the jar. No waste here. Once the panel is fully covered, I remove the stencil carefully and set the A2 panel aside to dry. And just a quick tip, before sealing up your paste, place a small piece of press and seal over the opening to help keep the product fresh. Then screw the lid back on tightly to prevent it from drying out. For my second technique, I'm working with a piece of watercolor cardstock because it holds up really well to heavier mediums. That said, you can use any heavy-duty cardstock you have on hand. Just make sure it can handle the moisture and texture of the paste. I'm using a palette spatula and the Candy Coat Teal Paste by Brutus Monroe. This paste is super fun to work with. It goes on as a solid creamy texture but dries translucent with a teal tint and gorgeous sparkle. It gives a really magical finish once it's dry. I spread the paste generously along the bottom portion of my A2 panel, letting the texture build slightly so that I get some beautiful dimension. Once I'm happy with how it looks, I take a piece of press and seal, place it sticky side down on my surface, and spread a small amount of the same paste directly onto the foil. I'm going to use that press and seal piece later in a fun and creative way, but for now, I set both the panel and the foil piece aside to dry completely. Now we're moving on to the third and final technique for today. For this one, I'm using the Lined Corners 3D embossing folder by Spellbinders, along with Simon Hurley's Lunar paste in the color Clear Skies. I opened the embossing folder and placed the indented side, the debossed side, in front of me, as that's the side we'll be applying the paste to. Using a palette knife, I start spreading the Lunar paste directly onto the embossing folder. I aim to cover a decent-sized area, making sure the paste is evenly distributed across the texture. Once I'm happy with the coverage, I set the folder aside to dry. Yes, you're letting the paste dry on the embossing folder for this technique. Next, I repeat the same process with the Lined Circles 3D embossing folder, this time using Slippery When Wet Lunar paste, a beautiful, vibrant gold. Again, I spread the paste over the indented side of the folder, trying to maintain a nice even thickness so the design prints clearly later. Once both embossing folders have a smooth, even layer of paste, I set them aside and allow them to dry completely before moving on to the next step. Now it's time to start die cutting a few elements to bring our cards to life. I'm working with the Say Cheese Classic Mouse collection, which is honestly one of my favorites. If you've joined me for my Tuesday live stream, you may have already seen me use this collection in action. So if you haven't caught that yet, I definitely recommend going back and checking out those cards too. This collection is just so much fun. It's playful, iconic, and perfect for any Disney lover, whether you're creating cards for kids, family vacations, birthdays, or just adding a little whimsy to your crafting. I'm starting off with some of the flags and banner elements from the set. I've already done the die cutting off screen to save a little time, but I'm going to assemble the banner here on camera so you can see exactly how it comes together. All of these pieces are really easy to work with. They fit together intuitively and give you a polished, dimensional look with very little effort. For this first card, I'm pairing the banner with the background we created using Technique 1. I love how this background turned out. It's vibrant, full of texture, and the banner adds the perfect finishing touch. I'll let you enjoy watching how the card comes together on screen, and I'll be back shortly to walk you through the next one. Now for card number 2. I'm using the Dockside Dreams dies, and I've already pre-cut some of the Mickey Mouse character pieces. I like to assemble all of my die-cut elements first before moving on to the background. This helps me visualize the full design. For this card, I'm using the background from Technique 2. I love how the candy coat teal paste dried. It's translucent and sparkly, just like shimmering water. To complete the background, I felt it needed a bit of sky, so I pulled out a cloud stencil and started lightly ink blending in some soft clouds. Now I didn't add any new ink to my brush, just used the leftover ink from my last project, and honestly, that's usually more than enough for a nice soft cloud effect. Once the clouds were done, I trimmed my background down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. Then I started adhering the ship elements from Dockside Dreams onto my background. Once the ship was set, I grabbed the press and seal piece that we set aside earlier with the paste drying on it. I gently peeled off the now dry paste from the foil and began fitting it to the front of the ship, kind of like the splash from the bow hitting the water. I shaped it slightly with my scissors to give it that wavy, dynamic look, then added glue to the back and adhered it to the card front. To finish the card, I placed Mickey Mouse on the front right side of the ship, giving it the feel of a Disney cruise scene. For my sentiment, I used one from this month's Spellbinders Club kit called Anchors Away and popped it up with foam adhesive near the bottom of the card for dimension. And that wraps up card number 2. For my next 2 cards, I'll be using the paste that's been drying on the embossing folders from earlier. Now that it's completely dry, I start gently pulling the paste off the surface of the embossing folders, being careful not to tear it. You want to go slowly here. Some parts may lift more easily than others, depending on how thick the paste was applied. If you decide to try this technique yourself, I highly recommend doing it with Simon Hurley Lunar paste, like I did here. I haven't tested this method with pastes from other brands, so I can only speak to how well it works with Lunar paste. It has the right consistency to peel cleanly and stay flexible after drying, which makes it ideal for this type of use. Once both of my embossed paste designs have been removed from the folders, I adhere them directly to an A2 card panel using a strong liquid glue. After they're in place, I trim off any of the overhanging edges using my Tim Holtz non-stick scissors. This step gives the card a clean, finished look while preserving all the beautiful texture we created. Next, it's time to die cut more elements from the Say Cheese Classic Mouse collection. I'm pulling together a few more themed pieces to help finish off these cards and really bring the scenes to life. Once again, I've left the footage of the character assembly in this video so you can follow along and see just how quickly and easily these pieces come together. Even though these characters have a few small components, the layering is super intuitive, and it's actually quite fun to see them take shape as you go. If you're new to die cut assembly, watching the full process can be really helpful. You'll get a feel for the order of layering and see how the details come to life with just a few simple steps. And that wraps up today's video. I hope you enjoyed seeing these different paste techniques in action and watching how the backgrounds and cards came together. Whether you're swatching your pastes, experimenting with embossing folders, or creating your own custom stencils, there are so many fun ways to add texture and shine to your card making. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, I'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss a new tutorial. I share brand new videos every Thursday filled with techniques, inspiration, and ideas to keep you creating. As always, I've linked all the supplies I used today down below in the video description, and you can also find them in my visual supply list and on my blog, along with additional photos and tips. If you decide to purchase any of the products I shared today, I'd really appreciate it if you use my affiliate links. They don't cost you anything extra, but they truly help support my channel and allow me to keep bringing you content like this. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and until next time, happy crafting!